is that the CABS meeting, all the participants, they thought this is too challenging and too ambitious, and they didn't want to go forward with it. But I think, Secretary, if this is a request from the AECB meeting, the CABS just have to comply, especially that we have presented to them a strategy and some models of other associations like the Arab Banking Association and the European Central Bank, European Banking Association. So I would urge you to present it to them again, and then they start working on it as we have requested. It should have been reported what happened, also. And this is what I'm saying, is that there are matters that have been addressed and tackled, but not adequately reported. And that's why we need to change the format of this report. Now we will go to the 11 deliberations and the workshops, correct? On the development of the inter-regional payment systems framework. Is that where we are? And inter-regional mobile payment strategy. Can you give us a briefing of why this came through, and what is the progress, and what did the workshops and the technical groups do about them, and what's the status, and who participated in the... Would you like to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This agenda item talks about the workshops and on the development of an inter-regional payment systems framework. During its meeting held on 9 August 2018 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the Assembly of Governors approved the proposal to explore the integration of the payment systems on the continent and the organization by the Central Bank of Egypt of 2 workshops to be held back-to-back on the development of an inter-regional payment systems integration framework and an integrated inter-regional mobile payment strategy. The workshops were held on 18-20 April 2019 in Cairo, Egypt, and they were attended by AECB member central banks, international development institutions, banking sector associations, mobile payment operators, as well as international foundations. Following presentations on themes and experiences related to integration of payment systems and mobile payments, as well as discussions notably on expected outcomes, action plans and the structures allowing to execute the 2 initiatives facilitated by the South African Reserve Bank, participants agreed on the need to develop terms of reference for the implementation of the initiatives based on the broad lines emanating from the discussions on each of them. Following the workshops, a team coordinated by the World Bank developed comprehensive terms of reference for the initiatives with the contributions of the South African Reserve Bank, the Central Bank of Egypt, and the AECB Secretariat. The team comprised the World Bank, CGEP, GSMA, Mwali, the African Development Bank, the African Union, African Institute for Remittances, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Furthermore, a landscape study on African payment systems and mobile payment integration has been prepared. This study showed up-to-date case studies on regional payments and mobile payments integration initiatives across the continent, along with design considerations that may be relevant to regional integration efforts. It provides a foundation on which additional research can be conducted and could be used by the structures in charge of driving the initiatives. This is more or less, Chairperson and Honorable Governors, the main objective and the main issues during the workshops. And I would like to add to your information that these terms of reference, once devised, they were sent by the AECB Secretariat to the member central banks which attended the 2 workshops for comments, and we were informed that no comments yet have been received from the member central banks. So, Chair, with your permission, if you allow me, emanating from these concerns by the Technical Committee and the Bureau, the AECB Secretariat in 12.2.1 indicated that a team coordinated by the World Bank...
Before that, you say that the TORs proposed that the AECB establish a body known as the African Interregional Payment Integration Task Force, to pursue the dual objective of developing, one, an interregional payment systems integration framework, two, an integrated interregional mobile payment strategy. The task force will provide leadership, strategic direction, project management, and overall ownership of all task force objectives and deliverables, which is good. The task force will be supported in this work by two key subgroups and an expert panel: Payment System Integration Working Group, expert working group tasked with developing an interregional payment systems integration framework; Mobile Integration Strategy Working Group, expert working group tasked with developing the payment strategy for mobile; expert panel made up of a broad range of private and public sector stakeholders to provide the process. Task force will function in an advisory capacity to the AACB and will report progress to the AACB in coordination with its secretariat. Further, the TOR recommend that an annual payment conference be held going forward, convening for central bank officials to discuss key topics and so on. Has been the task force formed?
Can I come?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I just would like to recall, I was mentioning a seminar that was held in 2014 in Algiers on modernizing and integrating payment systems in Africa. And I was saying that one of the recommendations of the participants was to set up a continental body aimed at working on integrating payment systems in Africa. And when the recommendation was presented to the governors in 2015 in Malabo, the governors considered that at that time, it was not yet time to have that, because we had a lot of work that should be done in the sub-regions in terms of integrating payment systems. And last year, when South African Reserve Bank was chairing AACB, there was an initiative to indicate that since 2014, many regions did improve their payment systems, and some regions, some sub-regions have been also working on integrating already their payment systems. And it was time to begin thinking about the former recommendation that wanted an integration of payment systems in Africa. And a proposal was made to have 2 workshops that should be held back to back for 2 initiatives. One of the initiatives was to have a working group on payment system integration, and the second initiative was to have also a working group on mobile payment integration strategy. The 2 workshops were conducted, and they were held in Cairo. Participants discussed on those 2 initiatives. And what was decided was that people had brainstormed on what should be done for each initiative, and decided that we needed to have terms of reference that should describe how we should be going forward, implement the 2 initiatives. That is the reason why we have the terms of reference. We did not have anything yet in place, because the terms of reference are just defining how we should go in implementing these initiatives. And what the terms of reference are saying is that we should have a task force. And then the task force should be comprising mainly central banks. And what was envisaged is that at the AACB level, we have a chair, vice chair, 5 sub-regions. So the chair of AACB should be represented in that task force, the vice chair, and for each sub-region, we should have a representative from the sub-region. And the South African Reserve Bank initiating the proposal was also supposed to be in that task force. And once we have that task force, it was also envisaged to have 2 working groups because we have 2 initiatives. One initiative is to come up with a framework for integrating payment system. And the other initiative is to come up with a strategy to integrate mobile payment systems. And what the terms of reference is proposing is that you have a task force overseeing the work those 2 working groups will be doing. So the task force will have 8 members, but each working group could have about 25 to 30 members drawn from central banks, development organizations, the private sector, etc. And the working group on payment system integration will be mostly driven by central banks. The payment system on the mobile payment strategy will have a little bit more private sector because you have MNOs, mobile payment operators, you can have banks, etc. But those 2 working groups will be proceeding under the supervision of the task force. So central banks will always know what's going on in those 2 working groups. And the group that designed the terms of reference was saying we could have a task force, 2 working groups for each of the initiatives. It will be good to have an expert panel. It will be just the experts that have experience and knowledge in those 2 areas and who could be there as advisors for the task force and then also for the working groups. So this is a design that is proposed for the project. And what was done is that once we had brainstormed among the participants of the 2 workshops, we have drawn the broad guidelines as what should be in each terms of reference. And after the workshop, as was indicated, a team coordinated by the World Bank with the different entities that were indicated came up with that proposal. And the proposal is just the terms of reference. And what was done is that the terms of reference were sent to all the central banks who participated in the 2 workshops for comments. And as was indicated also, we did not receive yet any comments. So during the technical committee meeting, what was said is that since we did not have maybe all the central banks of the association participate in the 2 workshops, it might be good to allow those central banks to give their view as to how we should be implementing these 2 initiatives and how we should be also considering the task force and all the other bodies. So that was what was presented to the bureau meeting. And the decision was we should take the terms of reference, send them again to all the AACB central banks, those who participated and those who did not participate in the workshops, and ask for their comments. And those comments should be incorporated in a new version of the terms of reference and be presented at the bureau meeting in Dakar in February. So in summary, this is what is at stake with respect to the 2 workshops and the project related to the integration of payment systems and mobile payment integration in Africa. Thank you very much, Chairman.
And above the task force, you said there is like a supervisory board? Or?
Yeah, the task force is a supervisory board. Under, under the task force, we will have the 2 working groups.
Over the task force? We
over
have
the task force?
Of the AACB?
Yes.
Which is in a committee called?
No, the task force is a supervisory board, but it is composed of
The chairman of
the
AAC.
chairman of the AACB, the vice chairman of the AACB,
Yeah.
and the chairman of each sub-region.
So we need to form the task force, right?
Yes, I mean, if the project has to go, because what was said is that we needed to send back the terms of reference to all the central banks, get their comments, include the possible comments into the terms of reference, and once it is adopted and accepted, then we will begin putting together the task force, the working groups, etc. But right now, we are in the process of having the terms of reference accepted and adopted by the governors first. Thank you.
So Chairman Rangubua is going then later on to form the task force? Or, yeah. And it's recommended here also that the Central Bank of Liberia is included because of their good experience payment systems integration, specifically Liberia.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairman. During the Bureau meeting we had, when we were discussing this item, if I recall, if I'm not mistaken, I guess Honorable Governor from the Central Bank of Liberia offered to have his central bank participate in the task force, because at one time he was saying that maybe the task force should be or could be expanded and have more participants.
But already the 8 are not decided upon yet, right? Yes. And the Central Bank of Liberia was suggesting maybe we can make them the task force 10 or 12, right? I think that was. But maybe you should leave this to yourself, Mr. Governor, to determine later, or should we make a decision today about who are the 8 members of the task force? How does things go?
Yeah, as I was saying, it's like right now, we might not be able to move forward unless we get, since it was decided that we need to send the terms of reference back to all the central banks, get their comments before we move forward. So what could be done is that when the central banks receive the terms of reference, they should put in comments what they would like to have. If they want to have a task force of 10, they could mention it. If they want to have a task force of...
and if they want to participate...
If they want to participate, they could express it. Okay. Then afterwards, all that should be incorporated in the terms of reference.
But this has been already sent to the central banks.
Yeah, it was already sent to the central banks that participated.
When?
Around 3 weeks ago.
You want to send to the rest?
No, we will send it back to all the central
banks.
Yeah. To everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Any questions? Governor, please, yes.
Yes, I was just going to suggest that rather than saying we will send it to the central banks and ask them if you want to put any comments, let there be a direct survey where the question is asked, would you like to participate? Would you like this thing to be enlarged? So that when you get the results, you get the views of the banks rather than just leave it to them to make it as a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, South Africa. Governor.
Thank you. It sounds like one of the things that says hurry up and wait. Because maybe we could check which central banks have not received or seen the terms of reference. I'll tell you what worries me is that we started this process in Sharm el-Sheikh last year, August. We are in August now. It's a year later, and we are still discussing the terms of reference. The workshop was held in April this year. And of all the projects that I had seen in the AACB, this is probably one where we have amassed the most number of partners I mean, the extent of the involvement of the partners in this workshop is massive. And I just worry that this project is going to end up being delayed, not because we do not have support for it, but because of our own inertia. And with respect, I would like to be wanting to check amongst our colleagues here who had not seen the terms of reference and thus are uncomfortable committing, right? If people have seen them, I do not see why we would still refer this thing back. I mean, I looked at the timelines that are put here for this project and the commitment from the partners and whether we would still be having these partners on board with our shifting this thing. And Mr. Chairman, I think that I would be remiss if I do not thank Egypt for the effort that you have put in this thing. And I worry your term is also coming to an end, and I've got no doubt that your successor can carry this thing forward. He has got a lot of energy. But why would we find it difficult to approve these terms of reference? Unless there are colleagues here who feel that, sorry, we have not commented. These things had gone 3 weeks ago, they said. If the standard is going to be, well, there were people who were not in the workshop. Well, there are countries that are not participating in this meeting. So they might then also just turn around and say, well, decisions taken at that meeting, tough luck, I still need my own time. I am not sure that we are dressing ourselves in glory here.
Well, I like your style, Governor, because we want to get things going. And maybe we should decide on the task force now. So this task force will immediately assume responsibility and start in the execution as well.
Yes, but the task force is also a function of the terms of reference. Yeah. We must have an agreement on the terms of reference. And maybe Executive Secretary...
Should it be?
Maybe Executive Secretary, we were remiss. When we were sending out these things 3 weeks ago, did we tell people that we expect that we want to finalize the terms of reference at this meeting? Because if that is indeed the case, we said to people we wanted to finalize the terms of reference at this meeting. With respect, colleagues, I think that we're not dressing ourselves in glory then if we would be pushing this thing. And if there are colleagues who feel that they have not commented and they still want to comment, well, maybe we should have a timeline here. The timeline that would say that we will wait until the Bureau meeting in February next year. So basically, it would have taken us, what, 18 months to finalize terms of reference? This can't be a model of efficiency.
We also in the Bureau were discussing, because there are many other matters where information that we were seeking from the some central banks, we did not get response that from now on correspondence will be, if not within 30 days, then we will consider it's approved by you, this kind of statement.
Chair.
Yes, question.
I think in fact that's a spirit we had given to this discussion in the Bureau. We had agreed that we set a deadline because we were told the technical team didn't want to discuss this because they were not experts in payment systems. So if we can say here, the Secretariat sends these to all central banks to avoid any excuses, but we give ourselves maximum, let's allow August. So by the end of August, they have collected all the comments and they have put together the final terms of reference, and if the meeting here can agree, at the level of the Bureau, we can approve the terms of reference by circulation by end of August, and then we move on.
I agree. Yeah? Okay. Let's move forward. Thank you. The report on... Yes? Governor, please.
Oui, merci, Président, de me passer la parole. À propos des... À propos des thèmes de référence, je ne sais pas si le secrétariat peut nous confirmer que ces thèmes de référence ont été envoyés à toutes les banques centrales. Parce que ce qui ressort du texte ici, c'est qu'on a envoyé uniquement à ceux qui ont participé aux ateliers. Est-ce qu'il n'y avait que ceux-là qui avaient droit au thème de référence ou alors tout le monde devait pouvoir avoir ces thèmes de référence? C'est un peu la question que je me pose par rapport à cette problématique-là. Merci.
No, Governor, no, not all central banks. The terms of reference were sent to the central banks that participated in the workshops, but all central banks were invited to the workshops, but the thing is that many central banks did not attend the workshops. That's why the Secretariat will resend again the terms of reference to everybody and give them end of August latest time for any comments. So that's for payment systems, which is a very important topic, and we thank the South Bank of Africa for bringing this up last year again as a very strategic initiative, and where really, yes, many African countries have made strides there. The report on the experiences and initiatives of AACB member central banks in the development of fintech and cyber security, which is Annex 11. Usama, can you brief us on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. At its meeting held in August 2018 in Sharm el-Sheikh, the Assembly of Governors noted the conclusions and recommendations of the Continental Seminar organized on 14-16 May 2018 in N'Djamena, Republic of Chad, on the theme Financial Technology Innovations, Cybercrime, Challenges for Central Banks. Governors endorsed the proposal that central banks monitor developments with a view to obtain an accurate understanding of the potential benefits, threats, and risks pertaining to fintech and cybersecurity developments, so as to assist with the development of appropriate policy measures to promote fintech while strengthening the stability of the financial sector. The Assembly of Governors also approved that a stock-taking exercise on AACB members' experience and initiatives on fintech developments and cybersecurity matters be undertaken. In this regard, a questionnaire developed by the Technical Committee with the assistance of the AACB Secretariat and experts in fintech and cybersecurity was forwarded to member central banks to collate data in these areas. The results of the survey show, inter alia, the interest expressed and the progress achieved by central banks in the area of fintech. Indeed, most of the central banks have regulatory frameworks that are adapted or in the process of being modified to take into account aspects relating to fintech. On the contrary, the features related to the use of cryptocurrencies are less mastered due to the still limited activities in this area. Furthermore, arrangements are made to warn users of cryptocurrencies against the risks incurred. Furthermore, almost all the African central banks have taken arrangements against cybercrime and put in place a device to fight against it. However, the compliance of devices to international standards varies from central bank to central bank. The infrastructures and internal organization to put in place, as well as the collaboration and sharing of information in the main areas of the fight against cybercrime, are in a design stage in a number of central banks. In view of the exchange information needs in the areas of fintech and cybersecurity, the report came out with the conclusion that a common organization at the level of the continent could be envisaged in terms of two options. On the one hand, the establishment at the continental level of a fintech cybersecurity unit which would deal with all the issues relating to fintech, including cryptocurrencies, as well as cybersecurity. On the other hand, one could adopt the creation of two separated working groups dedicated to fintech issues for one of them and to cybersecurity for the other. The two working groups could be formed around central banks which seem to be better equipped in these areas. However, during its meeting held on 13 March 2019 in Dakar, the AACB Bureau recommended that fintech and cybersecurity activities be incorporated into the activities of the CAPS working groups. During the CAPS meeting held in Cairo, Egypt on 11th June 2019, participants proposed that the issue of fintech be addressed by the Working Group on Crisis Management and Banking Resolution, chaired by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and the issue of cybersecurity be addressed by the Working Group on Cross-Border Banking Supervision, chaired by the South African Reserve Bank. This is, Chairperson, the background of the issue.
Okay, yeah, but these are all recommendations. But how and when these recommendations are going to happen?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. During the CAPS meeting also, since the Bureau directed that the activities of the two, the activities of fintech and cyber security be taken into account by the two working groups, we have, during the CAPS meeting, informed those two working groups. And the working group on cross-border banking supervision indicated that they would like to have, take responsibility for cybersecurity issues. And the working group on cross-border, on crisis management and banking resolution took responsibility for fintech. Now what is expected is that those two working groups come with a plan to indicate how they will be dealing with the issues of cybersecurity and fintech, and have also presentations that will be made. But in the meantime, they will have to prepare terms of reference, if I may so, as to how they will be taking into account these issues.
Yeah, but the recommendation of the experts that a common organization at the level of the continent could be envisaged in terms of two options is
I think that was a proposal before, but the resolution is that we don't form a new team or working group, rather integrate the business into the CABs, as the last recommendation says, and now the working groups of CABs are going to integrate this work into their business plan.
okay. All right. Thank you. So this is for the governors and the assembly to take note of, right? The ACB secretary should send the report to the chair of the CABs working groups for noting and inclusion in their work program. Yeah, thanks. The ACB Forum on Central Bank Foreign Currency Operations, OSSP, Annex 12.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is the report on the Forum on Central Bank Foreign Currency Operations, which was hosted by the South African Reserve Bank in collaboration with the OSSP Secretariat, including the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the European Central Bank. In Sharm el-Sheikh, the Assembly of Governors noted the presentation made by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and approved the proposed roadmap for enhanced relations between the Fed and the ACB, including the hosting by a member central bank of the Association of Unofficial Sector Service Providers, AACB Forum, which would include inter alia a training event focused on cross-border official account operations. The forum was held from 26 to 28 June 2019 at the South African Reserve Bank Conference Center in Pretoria, South Africa. The forum was attended by 35 AACB member central banks, 10 central banks from developed and emerging market economies, as well other institutions such as the Bank for International Settlements, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, and the London Bullion Market Association. Training sessions and discussion panels covered a range of official cross-border topics, including AML, CFT, sanctions compliance, endpoint security, client incidents response, and market overviews. OSSP participants had the opportunity to hear from AACB delegates their perspectives on the impact of de-risking of correspondent banking relationships from their jurisdictions. The forum also gave the opportunity to AACB member central banks and OSSPs to hold bilateral meetings to discuss on specific issues of interest. The survey carried out indicated that participants were highly satisfied with the forum, with the event yielding a number of practical outcomes and paths forward viewed as likely to strengthen the critical account relationships between OSSPs and their African Central Bank partners. In this regard, 80% of participants viewed the forum as very useful and would participate again. OSSPs were also satisfied with their ability to meet with their clients bilaterally on account matters. The high level of interactivity during the sessions and the survey results were suggestive of a strong demand from customers for practical account information and training along the lines presented related to cross-border operations topics.
I have one query in my mind here. That critical account relationships, to strengthen the critical account relationships between OSSP and the African Central Banks, and also OSP were also satisfied with their ability to meet with clients. Clients here is the central banks or the banks, bilaterally on account matters. Is there here an issue of confidentiality of certain transactions and account information, or will this, are we going to open up our stomach, or? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Yeah, the forum was aimed at allowing official sector service providers, which are mainly central banks of developed and emerging market economies, to deal with, to meet with AACB central banks. Usually what's happening is that relationships between central banks in the developed countries and maybe the African central banks do not happen on a physical way. Usually you have maybe wires, you have a telephone conversation between the central banks that are managing the central banks, the African central banks accounts, and the person who are in charge of following the accounts that their central bank has in those developed countries' central banks. And when you are having relationships with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, what they suggested is that they needed to have more relationship, close relationships with their clients in the central banks in Africa. And they were saying that 25% of their clients are also in the African continent. So it would be pertinent to have a meeting where they could meet many of their clients at the same time. And we have worked with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, who is co-chairing the Secretariat of the OSSP with the European Central Bank to organize that meeting. And as was indicated, that meeting was held in Pretoria. And what the OSSPs were saying is that they were quite satisfied with the opportunities they had to meet directly with the experts or the officers in the central banks that work with them in terms of managing their accounts. So this is what they were expressing in the survey.
I'm I'm afraid that the impact on de-risking will could result in reverse results. We have to be very careful to what extent are we going to share information. And if we make this agreement here, then on bilateral basis they will come to us, the Federal Reserve Bank and OSP, and talk to me, and then if I say I cannot, they say, no, there is an agreement with your AECB that, so I think sharing information is prerogative to each central bank to the extent of information they're willing to share. Maybe when the Federal Bank of New York is here, they'll come in later on, they can explain to us exactly the extent of information that they're looking for. Yes, Governor, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, ce que vous avez évoqué tout à l'heure est un problème important et je suis tout à fait d'accord avec vous qu'il faut accorder la plus grande importance. Mais j'avoue que j'ai quand même un petit problème de compréhension un peu des propositions qui nous sont faites. Parce que quand je regarde les documents qui nous ont été donnés, dans la partie délibération et recommandations du bureau, je vois que ces questions ont été examinées par le bureau. Et par exemple, la préoccupation que vous avez exprimée tout à l'heure et que moi je ressentais, je ne le vois pas dans les délibérations du bureau. Alors je me pose la question de savoir comment fonctionne le bureau. Parce que je suis tout à fait d'accord avec vous. C'est des questions sur lesquelles je crois qu'il faut attacher beaucoup d'importance. Moi, j'aurais souhaité que la préoccupation du bureau se ressente là, avant de nous faire la proposition qui est faite là. Et je me rends compte qu'il y a plusieurs points comme ça. Alors, est-ce que c'est les recommandations du secrétariat permanent ou les recommandations du bureau? Si c'est les recommandations du bureau, je pense qu'en principe, nous devrons pouvoir partager les mêmes préoccupations que vous. Et je suis tout à fait d'accord qu'à certains moments, mais il ne transparaît pas ici dans les préoccupations. Donc on a l'impression que vous êtes d'accord sur quelque chose a priori, que vous nous demandez d'accepter, et en même temps vous avez des inquiétudes que nous partageons aussi. Donc je crois que dans la procédure, il faut peut-être qu'on revoie ça pour savoir finalement qu'est-ce qu'on prend, qu'est-ce qu'on adopte. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, Governor, well taken. Actually, in the Bureau, we were discussing the format whereby the Bureau is meeting one day before the ACB or 2 days before the ACB. It doesn't give us enough time for discussing and reviewing matters. It doesn't give us, because there is a lot of important matters. And this we have discussed in the Bureau, and we requested the Secretariat to find a way where to give us more time and not bring the meeting of the Bureau just before the ACB meeting, because we get a little bit swamped with a lot of information. And the discussion was about also, this means we are going to have a different meeting and a different traveling and different expenses. So there was debate about this really. And so I think this, we didn't, maybe we didn't have discussed this very much, and it is considering, you know, that everything is coming together. But I was giving my opinion here on this point, not as the chairman, but as the Central Bank of Egypt governor. This is what came to my mind now, is that, yeah. Governor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. You will have to excuse me for the point that I'm going to raise, but I feel I would be doing myself and perhaps everyone who shares my sentiments injustice if I don't say this. I truly feel that I'm getting lost in the maze here. It seems to me that there are too many things that we're doing at the same time, creating task teams and bodies here and there to deal with this and that. And we are running the risk of losing ourselves or getting lost in the maze and not being able to focus on matters that actually matter most to us, and probably also being wasteful in terms of the cost of running all these programs together.
Yeah.
We have to get hold of this train and get hold of the issues and understand them very well. First of all, there's a strategy, or if there isn't, we have to find a way. It's unfortunate that we meet only once a year, but we have to find a way to strategize properly what it is that we're going to be doing. It is not clear where suggestions for doing things are coming from, whether it's the Secretariat or whether it's the committees or from where. And we have to find a way to streamline our work. We have to find a way to plan better and be more organized. As it is now, I feel we're dealing with too many things and in a very haphazard manner. And I mean, we can't continue like this. We have to find a way to work in a much better way. Already it's very complicated to get a large group like we are to converge on issues. But if we don't get organized, unfortunately this is becoming very wasteful in terms of time and resources. Yeah. So I want to suggest that at some point we should consider to, even if it's an extraordinary meeting, to meet and have a kind of a strategy session, go back to the drawing board to say what are the priorities for us, for regions, and hear from each region, and then pick out things that really matter and that we think we can do together and bring them here, while at the same time we still have regional issues that we are working on in our respective RECs as well as central banks. As it is now, I'm sorry, but I have a feeling that we have become too haphazard.
Yeah.
And it's not getting us anywhere.
Yeah. Let me, Governor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this intervention, extremely valuable, and it is your feeling, and it's a valid one. That's how you feel that way. But I think, frankly, I cannot really blame the Secretary, because most what's in this document is implementing decisions taken by the EACB Assembly in the previous meeting. So if there is too much, this is now our responsibility to rediscuss this and try to see where we want to go. Because you have to remember how many central banks is here, and each central bank also has its own aspiration in terms of certain topic. And since we are nice people and we always try to accommodate, so at the end of the day we end up with everything. So, but it is not the fault of the Secretary, because these are basically decisions of the AECB, the Assembly, and they're just, working on them to get them implemented. As far as the way the reporting, etc., this is the model that has been adopted. But it makes sense that we challenge the model every time, how we are reporting, how we are communicating. And actually, this is a natural process evolving out of what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do are very difficult projects. And at the beginning, in project tackling, at the beginning, you cannot have everything so organized. When you are reforming, restructuring, and changing, it is very difficult to get everything 100% organized. Then with some time, then things become more clear and more accurate and more well defined. But maybe on top of my mind, maybe we need to have the Bureau meet more often than twice a year. And Bureau being like the think tank of, for the ACB. But also, we need to give the message because the direction is given by this assembly. So this assembly has been operating in a certain way, but if this assembly is today challenging the way it has been happening, well, that's fine. The Bureau will take this into account, but also it's not the fault of the Bureau. But well and good, we can start to revise and strategize more and brainstorm, or even have a brainstorming session for the ACB meeting as well and bring a facilitator. But these are my comments. If any other governors, and also one thing also we face at the Bureau is that what we might think or agree upon, when we come to the big meeting, there are other opinions also. So this is what's up. So, Governor, would you like to give us your view?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a quick rejoinder to Governor of Lesotho's comment, which is, frankly, what I'm missing in this meeting. We've all come from our respective jurisdictions. We've actually been away for 1 year. There's been so much that has happened in our specific jurisdictions during that 1 year, which in some way may be, let's say, may touch on certain of the things that have been discussed. And my concern is that it's true we have to follow the process of, let's say, going through the documents in front of us. But I fear that we go back to our respective jurisdictions without having informed the rest of the members what has happened in what we've learned, we as governors, we as staff of specific other bodies. And therefore, let's say what we are discussing ends up getting dated. And the only area I would probably mention as an example, Chair, if you excuse me, is really the area of, for instance, fintech. Fintech is really changing very quickly. And it seems to me that we are quite stuck. And with all due respect to those that are in the committees, and I know there are terms of references that have been put out, but it may not be the issue of terms of reference. It may be an issue of other matters that are coming in, and the way, let's say, members in this forum are interacting with other members in other places. So it seems to me that that's what I'm missing. And I know the area of fintech, we have a way forward, but I'm not sure that all the things we brought with us will be fully incorporated there. There's a lot of work, for instance, that is going on in the BIS and indeed FSB as well, in the context of, say, cybersecurity, of which we are members of. And we, some of our people around this table are critical players in those places. So it seems to me that we need to find a way. If it is just a change in tack, that may or may not solve the problem. It's more fundamental, meaning how do we bring questions that are bubbling or new ideas into this, let's say, into this project which is bringing Africa together. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Governor. I think we are having the right discussion now. It's a very important discussion, rather than just going through an agenda. And what comes into my mind, where should we restart or tackle? And I give you my impressions, and they might be wrong. I think we don't, in terms of the working groups, which should be the backbone of what's being presented to us here, I think we have an issue. I think we need to give more attention to the selection of the members of the working group from our central banks. Whom are we sending there? What kind of qualification? And also give a terms of reference for the working group and a guide from us. What do we expect from them? Just to execute and conduct a direction, or think and innovate and try? And also, the working groups, they believe that they have to do this job, if they're given a job, to do it on their own. And like this last group, when they said, well, we cannot do this one, it's too big for us. We don't want them to say it's not too big. We want them to think, how could you do this? Whom can you ask to help with you? Do you need assistance, consultants, advice? Do you need to draw on other developed markets, central banks or experts where we can help them? So, I mean, we have to give them what is the space where they are supposed to operate, what we expect out of them, and also be very selective in the members of the working group, because I don't think all the working groups are good as the others. I feel that when members are sent there, not necessarily the best people in our teams, this is one thing. In terms of, and the working group is what is really the factory that's producing for us all this. Plus the secretariat, and if secretariat, we have to ask them, what do you need to satisfy these matters? And I think also the quality of the presentation, Governor, has to do being a little bit lost or in a mess. It's not maybe such about what has been done, but it's about the quality of communicating and presenting. Where did this come from? Why is this project being looked at? And where is it going to? And how we're doing that? So these are projects and need some also project management expertise. So the secretary, I think also we will have to put responsibility upon Mr. Papadiop also to think about his assessment of the working group. And I feel they're not getting support from us in terms of whom we are sending them. So frankly speaking, I myself, I don't know who are the members from my central bank in the working groups. I don't know who they are. And this tells you that we need to give more attention. So I think we have to start by reassessing the working groups, giving us your feedback about that. Without any sensitivity, we will not be upset, right? And we start putting a different kind of terms of reference for the working group in terms of what we expect out of them. And we want them to be bold in giving us the real thoughts and be self-critical about the challenges ahead of them. Yeah? Yes, Governor Najee.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think the governor of Lesotho and Kenya actually have really hit the point. I'd actually raised my flag to make a comment and input into the issue of the working group, because I consider that looking at the working groups, although we consider the issue of the mobile payments working group, I still consider that it was a bit kind of hanging. Because if we take the payment system working group and the mobile payments working group, and then in the middle, you left out the entire spectrum of issues around cybersecurity. So who is going to look at it? Now, because the mobile payments strategy goes along with the cybersecurity issues, because they're going to arise. And then within the central banks, there are capabilities. There are certain central banks that have higher levels of capabilities concerning certain. For instance, I take the example of Kenya when it comes to mobile payment system or the payment system. And then we look at the constitution of working groups around the payment system, and then you don't see Kenya there. And then you then wonder. So I really think that those issues that central banks are grappling with at regional levels, I don't know, but there should be a framework where the Secretariat is able to get those key issues to form part of the agenda. And also sometimes what should be the agenda issues are contained in the discussions that are presented here. And perhaps again, the onus falls back on the governors to distill those issues and bring them up. But I think, Chair, for the meetings to be more productive, the regions should be given an opportunity to harness and send to the Secretariat before the meeting those issues that are really struggling with at the regional level. I think in that way it would really help. And then finally, for the payment system working group, I certainly would suggest that we have to lay quite a lot of emphasis on fintech because it's gone nuclear and it affects everything we're doing, including the issues of cybersecurity. I thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Governor, thank you. But now the governor of Lesotho is talking about that we have a very large menu. So I think we need to revise the menu and decide really where we want to focus. Payment systems, cybersecurity, mobile payments, illicit financing, AML, the monetary union, and what the Basel II and Basel III, and we're talking about everything. And I don't think we have the resources in the Secretariat to be able to handle this in the quality and the clarity that we are requesting. We will have to make some sacrifices in terms of the topics we are handling. Am I right? What do you think? You are the man who is really day in, day out handling this. Okay. We will not fire you. Tell us what you think.
Yeah. Honorable Chairperson, I was quite in agreement with what you said. The workload at the Secretariat is not defined by the Secretariat. It's coming from the decisions taken by the Assembly of Governors or the Bureau. I know sometimes myself, I could ask, am I going to be able to implement all the decisions that are taken by either the Bureau or the Assembly of Governors? I know when Mr. Osama was making the presentations, we were quite glad to see that more than 95% of all the decisions that were taken a year ago in Sharm el-Sheikh were implemented by the AACB Secretariat and then the other entities we have to work with. For the decisions of the Bureau meeting held in Dakar in March, we implemented all the decisions taken. And just to come back to the OSSP AACB meeting, if you recall, in 2017, in Pretoria, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York came with a very large delegation, presenting a roadmap to improve the relationships with the AACB. And within that roadmap, we have the organization of an OSSP AACB forum. And that roadmap was endorsed by the AACB governors at the Assembly of Governors. So once it is endorsed, it's my job now to implement it. So I did get in touch with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, with the South African Reserve Bank, since the South African Reserve Bank was hosting. And we had several conference calls. I cannot know how many of them, to just work on making and to implementing this project. And we were able to do it. And there are many other projects on which we just have to implement them because they are decisions. Now I can understand that if you think we are doing too many things, and I support, certainly, I'll be the first one supporting what the Central Bank of Lesotho is saying, because sometimes myself, I find myself going in many directions. And it could be difficult for me sometimes maybe to do all the things. If I can be more focused, it will be helpful for me also. So I'm just saying that certainly I need to maybe give a little bit more directions as to what should be done. But sometimes I feel myself constrained to just also implement the decisions that are taken. So I will take guidance, but I will also reflect on how we should try to streamline all the things we are doing to get focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, si vous m'aviez donné la parole juste après vos premières conclusions, j'aurais été plus réactif parce que je voulais justement aborder dans le sens que vous avez, que vous avez abordé. Mais vous avez donné la parole au secrétariat exécutif qui a dit une grande partie de ce que je voulais ajouter à ce que vous avez dit. Moi, quand je regarde l'ordre du jour, Monsieur le Président, je dois dire que ce n'est pas un ordre du jour des gouverneurs de banque centrale. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de points, et souvent il y a des points qui ne sont même pas à notre niveau. J'avoue qu'il y a beaucoup de points qu'on a évoqués tout de suite. Je me suis demandé à quel moment c'est arrivé chez nous et par quelle voie éventuellement. Ça veut dire que ce n'est pas des questions qui sont à notre niveau. Vous avez parlé des groupes de travail. Je considère que tout n'est pas systématiquement traduit en groupe de travail. Il y a les échanges d'expériences. Et ça marche beaucoup au niveau de certaines enceintes. Je prends un exemple. Moi, j'avais voulu aider un peu dans le financement des petites et moyennes entreprises. Mais je sais que c'était quelque chose qui était à l'ordre du jour dans beaucoup de banques centrales. Il y a un certain nombre de banques centrales ici, bon, que je ne citerai pas, mais qui se connaissent, à qui j'ai envoyé des équipes voir leur expérience à la matière, et ça nous a permis de bâtir quelque chose qui tient la route, parce que de toutes les façons, un groupe de travail aura donné des conclusions. Ces conclusions, pour s'appliquer, même si nous avons le même code, pour s'appliquer dans chacune de nos législations, demandera une adaptation. Donc, je crois qu'on doit privilégier aussi ce qu'on appelle l'échange d'expérience des uns et des autres. Il a parlé tout à l'heure des fintech. Nous savons tous qu'une des banques centrales, notamment le Kenya, est en avance sur un certain nombre de choses. Et nous-mêmes, nous avons pris contact avec eux. Je crois que ça devrait nous permettre d'avancer beaucoup plus facilement. Parce qu'un groupe de travail, c'est un ensemble de gens qui vont se réunir, qui vont partager un certain nombre d'éléments qui ne sont pas obligatoirement au niveau de chacun. Je crois que ça allonge un peu. La deuxième chose, c'est la réflexion, Monsieur le Président. Moi, je pense que la réflexion manque de plus en plus à notre niveau sur un certain nombre de stratégies. Parce que nous avons beaucoup de points et ce n'est pas toujours que nous arrivons à aller un peu au-delà. Parce que nos banques centrales traversent, comme quelqu'un a dit tout à l'heure, je crois que ça doit être Patrick, des moments et on a besoin de partager ces expériences-là ou en tout cas ces difficultés pour pouvoir avoir aussi l'assentiment, l'option des autres qui ont peut-être vécu ce genre de choses. Je crois qu'au niveau des banques centrales, c'est important à l'heure actuelle. Et faisons de telle sorte que des questions techniques puissent nous arriver seulement quand ils ont besoin d'une orientation précise, parce que nous avons remarqué qu'il y a quelque chose de très important qu'il faut prendre en compte. Sinon, les points qui sont là, ce ne sont que les décisions qui ont été prises dans des présidences passées et qui traînent parce que tout simplement, il y a quelque chose à prendre en charge. Mais j'ai remarqué une chose, et ça, comme nous sommes engagés à assurer le secrétariat, nous allons prendre des dispositions pour renforcer le secrétariat de l'APCA, pour qu'il y ait beaucoup plus de personnes de qualifications diverses pour pouvoir prendre en charge un certain nombre de problèmes. Ça, on peut le faire. Mais ça ne sera efficace que si l'organisation de nos réunions est revue et dans la stratégie de ce que nous voulons et le plus rapidement possible. Voilà la contribution que je voulais faire, Monsieur le Président. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Governor. I apologize. I gave him the floor, but I didn't see that you wanted the intervention. So I apologize if I didn't see that. I gave it to Papa Diop to respond to what has been said. So sorry for this oversight.
Je connais la raison, Monsieur le Président. Vous regardez toujours à gauche et pas souvent à droite. Regardez un peu à droite.
I look at the oil countries. They have the money. So, can I? Okay. Yes, Governor, please.
Thank you again, Chair. I think many of the colleagues have said the issues in the manner in which they understand them, but I wanted to clarify that indeed there are many issues. Are they relevant? Yes, some of them are relevant, but we need, or most of them are relevant, but we need to prioritize. We can't do everything at once in such a large group. So, and the other issue is the channels through which issues come. We need to reflect upon that. I mean, we cannot have issues that we know as central bankers are a priority at this time, and then have somebody else come and say payment systems when they are not in fact in that area themselves. It's our jurisdiction there. And that has to stop, because we are in this matter of a monetary union because of the same reason. It's something that came from above, from the heads of state. I don't know who advised them to accede to having a monetary union at this point in time, but things come from above, and we have to deal with them here at a technical level, when in fact we are the ones who should have advised in the first place. So we are in this quagmire, and we're dealing with this, and we've been dealing with it for 15, 20 years now, and without success, because it's something that should not in the first place have come from the level where it has come through. Now, the working groups...
This is a revolution, Governor. You're making a revolution today.
No, I don't intend to have that. But the working groups should be well-resourced, I agree with you. But at the same time, we should be able to streamline what working groups we want, what structures we put in place, and resource them well. And I think it will be much more easier if the working groups or the chairs of the working groups attend the meetings and report to us. As much as we share what we are doing in our regions, our respective regions and jurisdictions, they should be able to report to us directly, not through the Secretariat, because the Secretariat cannot handle everything itself. They are the technical experts that we put in those groups. So, and the way to start doing this is to reflect on the structures, on the way we work and how we want to work, redesign everything so that we are able to work in a more effective manner.
Yeah.
And I think
I agree with everything except this direct reporting. I disagree with you, Governor. They cannot keep, the Secretary has to be in control of the communication across and coordinating, otherwise they will lose track of what's happening. Shortcuts are most of the time nice, but what do you think about the recommendation that the working groups will report directly to the central banks? You think this will be more productive?
I don't know if I should not make the same mistake because I see
Oh, okay, Governor.
Vice Chairperson.
Yeah.
No, Governor, I just want to request that we take note of the concerns of the governors and which are really relevant concerns, and we take responsibility as the new bureau to sit and see how best we can take the sentiments we've heard from the governors and try to reorganize the way we work, and maybe we might have to have 2 meetings before our next General Assembly to really go into detail and try to come up with a concrete proposal on how best we can make our meetings more productive. So I think otherwise we might continue lamenting here without any solution. So I think we take responsibility, and I request my colleagues that are coming up into the new bureau that we try and see if we can meet before the end of this year and really go into details in this. We already agreed that the Secretariat will be circulating the minutes immediately after the meeting. Normally they've been waiting till the February bureau before people know what they discussed. So we already agreed in the last bureau that after 1 month we should all receive the minutes of these meetings. And so I'd really request that we take the responsibility and see how best we can make these meetings more useful going forward. Thank you.
Taking the floor after me. Can I just say
Okay. I think this is the right approach, that the Bureau takes primary responsibility of implementing the governor's, please, Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may just associate myself with what the Governor from Rwanda has just said, I think in the context of the Bureau going forward, looking at how to restructure meetings for more effectiveness, we could consider a situation where the work program for the following year, as would have been proposed at the Bureau level, will be shared with governors ahead of these meetings, so that we can come to these meetings already having had the time with our teams also to think through and to come with proposals. As it is now, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you made a point before that because the Bureau meets a day or 2 before this meeting, it doesn't give us a chance. And we come here, I see on the agenda item number 15 that there's a work program and a budget for the year 2020. So presumably, very soon, we're going to be shown a proposed program for the following year. And within a very short period of a meeting here, we're supposed to think through and be able to offer feedback. And I think that's probably not very effective.
Yes.
So in the context of more effectiveness going forward, perhaps we could get that way in advance so that we can come prepared to discuss.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, the Bureau, I recommend that the Bureau, Governor Tunisia, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, je vais juste rebondir sur une question qui a été soulevée par plusieurs honorables gouverneurs concernant donc la fixation de priorités. Je souhaiterais partager avec vous une simple proposition. Pourquoi l'association, par exemple le secrétariat, bien sûr en concertation avec les membres du bureau de l'APCA, fixe des priorités pour les 3 prochaines années? Et sur la base de ces priorités, on établit ou on prépare un plan de travail qui détermine donc quelles sont les structures qui sont en relation avec ces priorités, notamment les groupes de travail ou autres propositions. Et de cette façon, nous pouvons avoir plus de visibilité, parce que je pense que ce qui manque, c'est on n'a pas assez de clarté et de visibilité sur, disons, le moyen terme. Nous avons juste une idée sur le plan de travail de l'exercice N+1. Donc ça peut rendre, je pense, plus efficace l'action de l'Association des banques centrales africaines.
Governor, I have a recommendation. I have a recommendation for the bureau. You should have 2 women at least in the bureau. The governor of Lesotho, for instance, and another governor, and the governor of BCL. Yeah, I think we've had a good discussion about this, and I think these are really important discussions, and now I think we are clear about a step forward about how we are going to tackle this gradually. What we are trying to contemplate are all very complex and difficult projects, so it is understood, but we always have to challenge ourselves and criticize ourselves, and this is very good, and I'm sure that things are going to get better under your leadership, Governor. Next point, unless there is, yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next point has to do with the themes of the Symposium and Continental Seminar for the year 2020. The ACP Secretariat received the proposals from the sub-regions for the Symposium and the Continental Seminar, and we have had around 70 or 71 proposed sub-themes. And after the deliberations of the Bureau recommended to the Assembly of Governors to select 1 theme for the Symposium and 1 theme for the Continental Seminar from the following lists. For the Symposium, fluctuations of exchange rates and management of foreign reserves, implications for African central banks. Number 2, digital financial inclusion, development of mobile financial services by central banks and transforming the informal sector. Number 3, economic diversification and development of the value chain, role of African central banks. For the Continental Seminar, role of African central banks in the transition to the digital economy. Number 2, remittances, financing opportunities for Africa and roles of central banks. Number 3, high levels of non-performing loans in Africa, determinants and implications for financial stability and the real economy in the region. Chairperson, for your consideration.
Thank you. The symposium yesterday I thought it was excellent, and really it created a lot of focus and attention to the topic, and I've benefited personally a lot. But the challenge is, Governor Kanyako, how we're going to handle our ministers of finance, with their continuing to borrow to finance growth. So this is the challenge we have. Anyway, so if there's no comments, we can move to the next item in the agenda, which is the program and budget of the Secretariat.
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
Yeah?
I think we have to select one.
The selection of the, sorry.
One topic for each, yeah.
We need to select for the next symposium.
Yeah.
These were the 3 topics. We have received a much larger number of proposals. 70 topics did we receive? Yes. 70. And we have to meld them down to those, to 3, and now it's a choice of 1 for, there was a discussion in the Bureau yesterday, why shouldn't we have 2 continental seminars, but there wasn't a decision about that. So we did it with the process of elimination yesterday. We had 5 and to choose 3 out of 5. Now we have to choose 1 out of 3. So if we can start with a process of elimination 2, if you would agree. Number 1 and 2 and 3. Fluctuation of exchange rates and management of foreign reserves, implication for African central banks. Should this be eliminated compared to the others? Fluctuations of exchange rate. Morocco, Tunisia? Yeah?
Thank you. So, merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, pour le symposium, je propose d'éliminer le premier... It's okay?
Yeah, can hear you.
Alors, pour le symposium, je propose d'éliminer le premier et le 3e thème. Donc, de garder le 2e, inclusion financière numérique, développement des services financiers mobiles par les banques centrales et de transformation du secteur informel. Juste un petit mot concernant le second thème. Actuellement en Tunisie, nous nous penchons sur la question d'inclusion financière. Il y en a déjà une loi sur les établissements de paiement qui a été promulguée fin 2018. La Banque centrale est en train de finaliser des circulaires pour la mise en place effective de ces établissements de paiement. Évidemment, il y en a l'inclusion financière numérique. Donc, ceci déjà fait intervenir la question de FinTech. Et en Tunisie, actuellement, nous essayons donc d'implémenter un sandbox et un BCT Lab. Et évidemment, quand pas mal de pays dans notre continent africain, le secteur informel, il pèse énormément dans notre économie. Donc, je supporte ce thème vu qu'il est d'actualité.
I'll ask the right wing first. Governors, do you agree with this?
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la parole. Moi, j'ai le sentiment que tout le thème, pratiquement, sont aussi importants les uns que les autres. Alors, si nous pouvons réfléchir sur une base, on va dire, triennale, par exemple, nous pourrions, en ce qui concerne les symposiums, prendre un des 3 thèmes et pour le séminaire également. C'est une proposition. Mais à mon sens, qu'il s'agisse de fluctuations de taux de change et gestion de réserve, inclusion financière, diversification économique et amélioration de la chaîne des valeurs, tous ces thèmes sont aussi importants. Merci.
Governor?
Je soutiens la proposition de la représentante de Tunisie.
Okay, thank you. Governor, please. Djibouti.
Oui, effectivement, je soutiens aussi l'idée de notre collègue de la Banque centrale de Tunisie parce que je trouve que l'inclusion financière est un thème très important par rapport aux des autres thèmes qu'on nous a proposés, puisque chaque banque centrale met en place actuellement une stratégie pour l'inclusion financière. Et d'ailleurs, à Djibouti aussi, on travaille beaucoup actuellement sur l'inclusion financière. On est en train de mettre en place un système de paiement. Et l'inclusion financière, surtout par les services financiers mobiles, nous permettra d'augmenter notre taux de bancarisation qui est actuellement faible. Donc je trouve que c'est un thème très important par rapport aux autres thèmes.
Thank you. Governor? Governor Gambia?
I second the recommendation represented by Tunisian Central Bank.
Yeah. Everybody is supporting this? Okay? I told you, women have leadership and you should...
Sorry, Chair, South Africa, we just... with your permission, we just want to make, the following proposal. We hear what the colleagues are saying, but we think that topic number 1, the fluctuations of exchange rates and the management of foreign reserves, is a natural extension from what we discussed, yesterday. And while we agree on the issue of, digital financial inclusion as being a very important topic, we think in some respects this will be, catered for in the task force and that we want to set up in terms of the payment systems and also the digital, financial inclusion or the digital, mobile payment project that we have. So we actually would actually suggest that we go for one for the symposium, and we think it'll be a natural follow-on from the discussions we had yesterday. Thank you.
Yeah. Shall I give Algeria, please?
Moi, le thème sur l'inclusion financière me paraît important, non pas en termes d'inclusion financière simplement. Moi, c'est les derniers mots qui m'intéressent, la transformation du secteur informel. Hier, on en a parlé, l'Afrique, tous les pays d'Afrique pratiquement souffrent de l'existence d'un secteur informel extrêmement important, d'une réduction et donc d'un amenuisement et de la faiblesse des recettes budgétaires, etc. Et donc la transformation du secteur informel, la formalisation, si vous voulez, si je peux m'exprimer ainsi, de ce secteur-là, ça me paraît quelque chose d'extrêmement important. Et si le système bancaire et les banques centrales peuvent apporter quelque chose en la matière, peuvent participer avec d'autres mesures évidemment gouvernementales, ce serait quelque chose de très bénéfique pour l'Afrique. Voilà.
Comoros, please. No?
Oui, excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président, je ne devrais pas prendre la parole car je soutiens parfaitement la position de la Tunisie. Donc je crois que...
Thank you. Can we take one from here?
The Gambia is.
Huh? Yeah. You will take first Governor, coming later. Sorry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais ici souligner en tout cas ma préférence effectivement pour le thème de l'inclusion financière numérique, d'autant plus qu'il figure un thème assez proche aussi, figure dans les thèmes du séminaire continental, le rôle des banques centrales africaines dans la transition vers l'économie numérique. Donc si on choisit ce thème dans le symposium, on pourra réduire aussi par la même occasion le nombre de thèmes à choisir pour le séminaire continental.
Yeah. Governor Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I have a little bit of a problem. Why I support the suggestion by Tunisia, I'm looking at the bigger picture, Chair. And the bigger picture is that the digital economy includes within it the digital financial inclusion, which we're talking about. So why don't we take the Continental Seminar topic #1 as the symposium topic, which includes every discussion about digital financial inclusion, because the digital economy is a bigger picture, and that is where the world is going to, and Africa shouldn't be left behind when the world is moving ahead. And central banks in particular can lead our countries towards the digital economy. And there's no way you're going to have discussions about the digital economy without discussing every issue about financial inclusion. So I would suggest that we move the topic, which is the Continental Seminar topic, as the symposium topic. And that would be in line with the discussions the governors have already said. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Governor, I don't mind we do that, but we have to first decide on the symposium and then vote for moving this. Yeah?
My suggestion is that the topic for the symposium should be role of African central banks in the transition to a digital economy.
Yes, I see.
And that includes the digital financial inclusion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Role of African central banks in the digital economy. Governor, please.
Thank you. It took a long time before you see me.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You will fire me after 1 hour, so it's okay.
Actually, that was exactly what I was going to say. Nigeria, what Nigeria is saying.
Yeah.
Digital economy. And of course, to accommodate South Africa also, we can look at the exchange rate in some other way. But digital economy is a broader picture. Myself, we are developing national financial inclusion strategy. Inclusion today is all about fintech. You have to add technology to it. That is very important. We saw in Kenya where financial inclusion moved to close to 82-83% because of the mobile money and other fintech that they have in the country. So this is very important.
So those who voted for the digital are in agreement with this recommendation? Tunisia and all the rest? Yeah?
Sierra Leone and then Liberia.
Sierra Leone, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, we talked about the debt problem.
Yes.
And we all around this table know that budget deficits create debt, budget deficits create current account deficits, and they impact the exchange rate. And we all talked about the wisdom in trying to get our finance ministers to get this message. And I would think that a symposium where we deal with the fluctuations in the exchange rates, invite the finance ministers to that symposium where we get a discussion of the role of fiscal deficits on the current account deficits and the exchange rates would be a very good thing to do. I am all for digital inclusion and all of this financial inclusion, but given the seriousness of Africa's debt problem and how it impacts all of us in our daily activities, I think that I like to sail against the wind. It's a better way for us to have a symposium on the exchange rate and the relationship between budget deficits and bring our finance ministers in. Thank you very much.
Governor Liberia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Central Bank of Liberia is still not satisfied with the response from ECOWAS relative to why ministers of finance are not attending these meetings. Reason being that if this is accepted, that we should consult our individual minister of finance, we'll have about 30 different response, 30 or 40. And how do we deal with them? We need, is there another way? We need another approach to this, how to get the Minister of Finance to attend these meetings. But in terms of the symposium and the seminar, for the seminar, Digital Economy, I will support that. And for the symposium, Fluctuation of Exchange Rate and Management of Foreign Reserve, Implication for Africa's Central Banks, like what my colleague from Sierra Leone just remarked about, very important. So for the symposium, number one, and for the seminar, I will also support number one.
Governor,
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Malawi. Will this be the last intervention? Then we make a
Thank you so
decision.
much, Chair. I think what some of us have been struggling with is whether we have topics that we discuss and we do directly ourselves take initiatives to take them through and implement them. And certainly the topics that have been put forward, all the 6, are topics where they are within our preserve, either by way of our supervision, regulation, actions, decisions of monetary policy, and so forth. And therefore, these are all important topics. But Chair doesn't do any harm in Malawi expressing where its preferences were. And I think our preference for the symposium was the issue of exchange rate. And we thought that if this was the topic for the symposium, it's something at the heart of every central bank governor. And therefore, we were supporting, I think, the position that South Africa presented earlier on. But we note that majority are preferring the second choice, but we still wanted to add our voice that our preference was number one as a subject for the symposium. And we were also, I think, supporting the other presentation that to us for the continental seminar, the issue of the digital economy was, and it should have been the topic. But since we have to go for the symposium first, that's how we still had to express ourselves as to which preference we had, since we would later on discuss the issue of the continental seminar.
Thank you. I think what I can see is that the sentiment, and I endorse that. It makes sense. What Nigeria governor has said is that the digital economy is a broader subject that encompasses mobile financial services, and obviously there is a sentiment because this is what's happening today. Everybody wants to, most governors want this topic, so that we move the topic from the continental seminar on the digital economy and it becomes the symposium. And we can choose on the continental seminar the same way as the governors wish. If they want to choose the fluctuation of the exchange rate or the non-performing loans, then we can vote. We can vote and discuss which topic in the seminar we want. So I think we'll go with the sentiment of the majority of the central banks, and decide on the symposium that it will be the role of African central banks in the transition to the digital economy and on financial inclusion. In terms of the continental seminar, yeah, Governor Ghana, Djibouti, Ghana, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to go with the suggestion that for the symposium, we deal with the transition to the digital economy, and in that context, look at the financial inclusion aspect of it. And for the seminar, I propose that we tackle the exchange rate topic, and I propose that we perhaps refer the NPL, the non-performing loan issue, to CAMS to look at. Yes, as one of its tasks for the year. It's a very important issue, and I believe that having a view
Or we
at the
can have
regional level
two seminars.
will be important.
Or we can have two seminars, because this was one of the suggestions. If it's not too much to have two seminars across the year. Governor, Egypt.
Yeah, I think for continental, the third topic is very, very crucial and important for financial stability. Because actually, most of our countries, the banking system, the banking sector represents the majority of financial system. Therefore, if this sector collapsed, that means the financial system will be collapsed too. Therefore, I believe high level of non-performing is very, very important, and because actually it has two different folds. Number one, which is related preemptive, which is stop bleeding, and another fold which is related to the correction for the legacy of the non-performing loan.
Thank you. Governor Kenya.
Thank you, Chair. From our perspective, actually, for the symposium, our intention or our idea was to go with topic number one, but I think we are persuaded, as following the discussion, that the amended digital economy, financial inclusion sort of topic is good for most of our members, our colleagues. But in that context, actually, we would really would want to support what our colleague from the Central Bank of Ghana said, which is the topic on fluctuation of exchange rate and the management of foreign reserves. That is quite important to us, particularly because we are still small and open, and there'll be a lot more shocks coming from the global economy, and we haven't discussed that topic in a long while. So we thought that that's, if we could agree, that could be a topic for the continental seminar. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Somalia, Governor, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. For the continental seminar, I think number two, which is remittance, it is an important source of funding. And for Somalia specifically, it is also a lifeline. Up to 24% of our GDP. For that matter, I would like to stress should not only consider to have that as the main topic, but also see the opportunity side as well as the threat. The risking is a real issue and threat to remittance, and I would suggest that we also amend the wording and say the risking, financing opportunity for Africa and the role of central banks. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Governor. And Governor Biak?
Oui, merci, Président. Peut-être que je vais faire, comment on appellerait, un délit d'initié, parce que au niveau de la réunion du bureau, c'est déjà un thème qui avait notre préférence, c'est-à-dire le thème numéro 3, sur les créances douteuses. Parce que nous pensons effectivement que c'est une problématique qui concerne la plupart des banques et qui remet en cause la stabilité financière dans tout système. Donc nous pensons que c'est quelque chose de très, très important qui devrait pouvoir être discuté et surtout partager l'expérience, faire un partage de l'expérience entre différentes banques, parce qu'effectivement c'est un problème qu'on retrouve partout et on ferait mieux de pouvoir savoir ce que les autres ont fait, et entre techniciens, je veux dire. Voilà ce que je voulais dire. Donc pour le thème numéro 3, en ce qui concerne le séminaire continental. Merci.
Thank you. I think Tunisia, we went along with you on the digital economy. We are okay on the symposium. You can have only one item from the menu.
Alors, Monsieur le Président, bon, si la majorité, ils ont voté concernant la digital economy, so I should be okay also. Bon, pour le séminaire continental, je ne sais pas si votre proposition d'organiser 2 séminaires continentaux c'est-à-dire va être mise en œuvre. Dans ce cas, pour le séminaire continental, je soutiens le 2e et le 3e thème. Par contre, si il faudrait tout de même choisir un seul thème, je soutiens par contre la proposition d'honorable gouverneur de la Somalie concernant l'envoi des fonds des migrants, parce qu'en Tunisie, les transferts des migrants n'est pas assez important, et il y a toujours, cette question reviendrait toujours, parce que vous savez, donc on ne peut pas vraiment trop s'endetter, comme ça a été donc discuté hier. Aussi l'accès au marché financier, il fallait bien sûr choisir le bon moment pour le faire, et parfois le profil risque donc je dirais d'une façon générale des pays africains ne leur permet pas d'avoir de bonnes conditions. Donc une des sources de financement pour pouvoir aussi alléger la pression sur la balance des paiements, c'est donc l'envoi des fonds des migrants. Juste une petite remarque, si vous permettez. Bon, pour le cas de la Tunisie, nous cherchons toujours de nouvelles idées, surtout que, par exemple, les 2e et 3e générations de notre diaspora, alors leur relation avec le pays n'est pas identique à celle de la première génération. Je m'explique. C'est-à-dire, il ne fallait pas vraiment utiliser l'argument du patriotisme pour qu'ils puissent donc transférer leur argent, et il fallait être innovant et chercher de nouvelles idées. C'est pour cette raison il serait toujours important de partager les idées et les expériences concernant ce thème-là.
Okay, thank you. I see the decision of the association of the governors is that the symposium, as agreed, will be the role of African central banks in the transition of the digital economy and financial inclusion. And in terms of the continental seminars, we'll have 2 seminars. One of them is the fluctuation of exchange rates, which is under the symposium headline, and the other one is the high level of non-performing loans, and I very much support that, because non-performing loans is something related to us in Africa more. Foreign exchange rates and management foreign reserves is a global matter where there's a lot of information around, but we still we'll have those two seminars. In terms of the remittances, I would suggest that Egypt will host for Somalia and Tunisia and Egypt, because the three of us have this specific matter is very significant as part of the GDP. We can host and take care of holding a small seminar, bringing experts on that matter in Cairo at a time we can agree to. I think this is good. Okay? Thank you. Nigeria? Governor?
Chairman, what I find difficult with the Second Continental Seminar is, are we saying that governors of African central banks do not know the determinants of non-performing loans, or that they don't know the implications of non-performing loans on the stability of the financial system? Because we are looking at the deliverables of the seminar. What is a continental seminar on non-performing loans that looks at the causes and the implications on the stability? What is it going to add to the knowledge that honorable governors already possess in that area? This is the problem I have with that choice. And to me, I think that if we are going to put our citizens on the road to go for a seminar, they should come back with a deliverable, so that when they come back and report to the governors can have a direction. So I'm finding it difficult to identify with that. I would think that what we have not harvested is the fruits of remittances. Africans have so many of their citizens in the diaspora. Have we created the environment to harvest all the benefits of the remittances that are coming? Sometimes our payment systems provide a big problem to our diaspora populations to send back home whatever their earnings. So looking at the two, I certainly would have gone for the remittances, because I don't know what the governors don't know about the causes of non-performing loans or the implications on the stability of the financial system. Maybe the chairman can...
In Egypt, we had, when I entered the central bank in 2004, we had 50% non-performing loans. Today we have around 2.5%, 3%. We resolved it with ourselves, really, and we've done a lot of things. And we are ready to provide this experience to any central bank in terms of it happened underlying this was a lot of bank merging and consolidations and some privatization and restructuring and arbitration mechanisms for clients and what have you. So we'll be very happy. Deputy Governor Gamal, and he's been there, and he managed this process to accommodate any. If this is satisfactory for governors who are asking for non-performing loans, then we will at that point have the remittances. Yes, of course, our financial stability today is threatened by cross-border flows, whether it's the fluctuation of the foreign exchange rates, monetary policy in global markets, or international remittances, etc. Of course, it's an important matter. Yes, NPLs, Governor Gamal, is important for financial stability, but what the governor here wants to say is that it's something that we can handle on a bilateral basis, or can exchange expertise on bilateral basis. He's trying to think about if there is a seminar, what will it address, you know?
Yes.
And
yes.
And
Okay.
so
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I believe that the non-performing loans, this is a big threat for the financial stability, as I mentioned earlier. Because actually, just I would like to tell you in two statements what's happening to us and what the effect of our preemptive action and the taken for NPLs and credit origination. I'll tell in 2 minutes, when we signed the agreement with the IMF, this was in November 2016, what's happened, the currency devaluated by 150%, interest rate hikes and interest rate 700 basis points. Let's imagine the structure of the banking sector in Egypt. The net worths are in Egyptian pounds, local currency. 40% of the total assets are in foreign currency. Between day and night, our risk-weighted assets inflated by 40%. 40%. Let us imagine the impact on the financial sector and banks. And 700 basis hike, let's imagine the impact on banks' equity from this hike of interest on the available for sale portfolio. Therefore, after all of this, because we have in place preemptive measures, and we asked all banks since 10 years to have a separate department for non-performing loans to be reporting to the highest level of authority within the bank, because actually to avoid potential losses and potential creating of provision. Actually, if we fix it, all of these things, because actually NPLs, in most cases, high NPLs are due lack of many things: proper policies, governance, control effectiveness, proper assessment of assets, all of these things. Therefore, I believe countries with high level of NPLs, they need to chat, exchange views, because as Mr. Governor mentioned, in 2004, we had at that time 150 billion Egyptian pounds as a non-performing loans. The coverage ratio was 50%. Banks' net worth was 30 billion. That means uncovered NPLs was 75 million Egyptian pounds in front of 30 billion as a net worth. That means 45 billion of depositors gone. Therefore, I believe this is very important. We're talking about financial stability. In Egypt, the banking stability represents 85% of the financial system. Let's imagine if something happened to this sector, what is going to happen? I believe if we don't want strong banks, in our case, we wouldn't be in a position to sign the agreement with IMF, we wouldn't be in a position for the people of monetary policy to use its tool properly. This is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Governors, we're not doing well with time at all. And can I request we try to agree on a decision on this? We have this proposed 2 topics to have 2 seminars. Is it agreed? If there's an objection, we can listen to that. If not, we agree and we move on. Can we agree on that? But when I see your flag up, you...
Thank you, Chair. I wish to associate myself with the sentiments expressed by my colleague from Central Bank of Nigeria with regard to the choice of the second choice of the topic on non-performing loans. That is to say, I believe that in each country we do know what of the causes of the non-performing loans are, and we know the implications. Therefore, for a continental seminar, we need something that when we emerge out of that seminar, we have deliverables. Therefore, I would suggest, Chair, that for the second topic, we should consider the topic on economic diversification and development of the value chain, because even yesterday, we were talking about lack of intra-Africa trade. Why? Because our countries, our economies are not well diversified. And therefore, even if we do sign and rectify the Africa Free Trade Agreement, to the extent that we don't have anything to trade amongst each other, that shall remain a pipe dream. Therefore, that for me would be a very important topic that could provide meaningful takeaways. Thank you.
Sorry, Sierra Leone, your flag has been up. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like to support the sentiments expressed by the Central Bank of Nigeria. As I said yesterday, one of the things that I have concerned with is how to direct financial flows from our diaspora citizens back into our financial system. And this is an untapped set of resources we don't think about. We think about FDI, we think about all of these things that we have to pay back. And therefore, I would think that I'm sure there are people around this table who are like me, who want to hear from people who have done this kind of thing before in terms of diaspora bonds and this, that. I think we can all get something out of it rather than looking at NPLs, though important, but we all have a pretty good reason as to why they are the way they are. Thank you.
Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'd like to agree with the previous agreement, which I thought we were converging on, that we have two seminars. One, as we said, for exchange rates and reserves management, but also the other on MPLs. And I think, in support of what our colleague from Nigeria said, the problem is the wording of the proposed topic, and not so much the issue of MPLs. I think, we agree that MPLs is a very important issue, and in fact, many of our jurisdictions are dealing with an MPL overhang. And so perhaps instead of phrase it as determinants and implications of financial stability, I suggest we reframe it as a seminar that would look at regulatory approaches to address MPLs, the MPL overhang. And many of our various jurisdictions are dealing with it. We can, at that seminar, learn from how Egypt is dealing with it, how Kenya, every other jurisdiction that has gone through it or is going through it, and learn from each other as to how to mitigate this or address any current overhang issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Governor Biak. Yeah.
Oui, merci. Je voulais dire que je vais appuyer ce que le gouverneur du Ghana vient de dire, parce que je crois que s'il y a l'association des banques centrales, c'est également pour un partage d'expérience. Je crois que c'est également important. On sait très bien, oui, d'accord, on a les mêmes problèmes, peut-être que dans différents pays, on les a adressés d'une certaine manière. Alors, quand on est ensemble, c'est pour faire un partage. Donc, les livrables qu'on doit avoir ne doivent pas forcément être des solutions nouvelles, mais simplement des solutions telles qu'elles ont été appliquées dans certains pays et dans certaines banques centrales. Donc, je crois que ce n'est pas un problème de livrable qu'on doit avoir comme une solution, mais le livrable peut aussi simplement être des bonnes pratiques qui se font ailleurs et qui peuvent être partagées entre différentes banques centrales. Donc, c'est pour ça que le thème là, sur les créances douteuses me semble important, parce qu'on partagerait une expérience qui semble très intéressante par rapport à ce qui s'est passé en Égypte. Peut-être, comme j'ai dit tout à l'heure, il y aura peut-être, comme je disais précédemment, un délit d'initié, parce qu'au niveau du bureau, j'avais évoqué le cas de la zone de l'Afrique centrale. Nous avons 6 États avec un niveau de créances douteuses quand même élevé de l'ordre de 25%. Alors, il s'agit de 6 pays quand même, qui, je crois que mon collègue d'Afrique de l'Ouest n'est peut-être pas là, mais je crois qu'on a la même problématique partout. Ça fait quand même une problématique qui est transversale. Peut-être qu'on ne sait pas s'y prendre. Pourquoi ne pas donc apprendre des autres qui savent s'y prendre? Merci.
Thank you. Governor Algeria, please.
Il me semble avoir entendu l'idée de 2 séminaires continentaux. Je pense que ce n'est pas une très bonne idée parce qu'on ne se rend pas compte de la lourdeur. C'est très lourd d'organiser un séminaire continental. Et pour avoir participé plusieurs fois à ces délibérations. Après, il faut trouver les pays qui peuvent accueillir. Pour avoir déjà organisé ça à Alger, je vous assure, m'être occupé moi-même de ça, je vous assure que c'est relativement lourd donc il me semble un séminaire. Et puis pour le secrétariat de l'ABCA, vous ne pouvez pas savoir le travail que ça fait et la lourdeur de la chose. Voilà. Pour ce qui est des séminaires, du séminaire lui-même, enfin du séminaire continental, moi je suis assez séduit par l'intervention de la représentante de la Tunisie, dans ce sens où, moi j'ai toujours pensé, on a 4 ou 5 millions de binationaux qui vivent en Europe, d'Algériens qui ont la double nationalité. C'est vrai que c'est des enfants de 3e, 4e génération, donc ils n'ont pas le même lien avec le pays. Et j'ai toujours pensé que, en termes d'envoi, c'est quelque chose de perdu, quoi. On ne pourra jamais, c'est pas comme les pères qui partaient travailler et qui envoyaient de l'argent. Par contre, cette idée d'innover, c'est-à-dire de trouver des moyens de faire, pas de faire revenir, mais de faire participer d'une manière ou d'une autre, c'est une idée qui me séduit assez. Et bon, et comme on a, je crois, comme l'Égypte, comme la Tunisie, comme le Maroc, on a une diaspora extrêmement importante à l'étranger, elle me séduit cette idée-là. Voilà. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Can I say, Governor, please?
I want to make suggestion here. Number one, since remittances is inflows and somewhat related to reserve management and exchange rate, I want to say we can say forex inflows, fluctuations of exchange rates, and management of foreign reserves. Then we collapse remittances to that. Yeah. And then, to be honest, well, others are saying non-performing loans is important, but I want to go with Nigeria's suggestion. I'm not sure whether, we can take a whole seminar on non-performing loans. In the Gambia, non-performing loan ratio is 3%. We brought it down from 10% to 3%. So I think it is more to do about the regulation and how do you follow those rules. So to spend a whole day or so on a seminar on non-performing loans, I don't think, I'm not sure about that. So I think, but if we collapse remittances to the first one, forex inflows, fluctuations of exchange rates, and management of foreign reserves, I think that would solve that issue.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say that we can combine the remittances with the fluctuations of exchange rate by saying challenges to the current account, and the current account includes the remittances and the effects on foreign exchange and reserves. So it becomes how also important is remittances in its implications on foreign exchange, on reserves, on the current account itself. So there is also policy matters involved than just handling remittances as a product by its own. So I think we can, and we can extend the seminar maybe by 1 day, so we can have a day on the remittances, and the people involved are from the same background, because diaspora and remittances is all related to their impact on foreign exchange markets and foreign exchange reserves and the implications on stability. And then we can have like this two seminars, one of them under this topic and the other is in terms of the non-performing loans. While I appreciate you have low levels of non-performing loans, but other governors are concerned very much about non-performing loans, and it seems that they are really being, they have a challenge with that, and it's a topic. And if the banks are at stake and soundness is being affected, there is not much to do with monetary policy and so on. So if we will just combine the topic to be the current account challenges and its effects on FX and reserves, and within that the remittances is being handled in a specific day, to bring some expert in terms of how these remittances can best be handled and how to bring help in terms of mobile payments, digitization, pricing to clients of payments, and challenges of cross-border regulations and so on. And we can have the other one on non-performing loans. Would that be okay for everybody, I guess? And we can increase the budget a little bit by $10,000 or something. Yeah. We are willing to host one of those programs. Governor,
Yes, I just
something to say?
The African Institute for Remittances, they normally conduct seminars on these remittances, and also they help in building capacity. We are working with them. They come to Central Bank, look at what we have and how to help improving the quality of data. So we have that option also available, and it's an AU institute. Thank you.
Governor, I think I want to support what you said, and if governors agree, we need to conclude this, otherwise we are taking too long time on something that is not very substantial. So I think we take the two seminars, and what the governor from Gambia said is the Secretariat gets in touch with that institute to support us in this seminar. I would also add to what you said, Governor, you've offered to host one seminar, and we're offering to host the second seminar, so we can conclude it at that.
Yeah. Nigeria will host the third, because they are the one who created all this fuss from the beginning.
There's not that, so
and they have a lot of money.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let's move forward to the draft work program and budget of the Secretariat for the year 2020.
Thank you, Chairperson. As for the draft working program and budget of the ACB Secretariat for the year 2020, as in previous years, the working program of the ACB Secretariat will focus on: number 1, organization and convening of the statutory meetings of the association; number 2, follow-up of the implementation of the African Monetary Cooperation Program; number 3, follow-up of the activities regarding the establishment of the African Central Bank; number 4, strengthening of relationships with African organizations pursuing the same goal and with other international institutions. In this context, a training of trainers workshop for central banks members of the ACB Bureau will be organized in 2020 on the Bayesian estimation, analysis and regression toolbox of the European Central Bank in order to strengthen the capacity of AECB member central banks. Further, the Secretariat will follow up the activities of the Community of African Banking Supervisors. Based on the proposed program, the 2020 budget, excluding the cost of Secretariat staff borne by BCAO, is projected at $224,120 US against $219,000 US in 2019, showing an increase of 2.3%. This increase results mainly from the costs of the organization of the workshop mentioned above. In compliance with the principle of equal apportionment of the budget adopted by the Assembly of Governors, the contribution of each central bank for 2020 amounts to $5,603 US compared to $5,475 US in 2019, showing an increase of 2.3%, and this is the recommendation for your adoption.
Yeah, but I see after the long discussions today that the working program scope of the Secretariat will need to be deepened, beefed up and presented to the Bureau based on the discussions. And I don't know your opinion in terms of the expected budget requirements, etc., in view of the heavy load that you've been given now from how many central banks? 42 are we? 50?
40 central banks.
40 central banks. So, so this poor man now has to go and work hard. So can you give us your views about this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Certainly, we have an annex that is already a little bit more detailed on...
Can you go through it?
Okay. Okay, so we have Annex 14, where we indicate what was summarized in terms of the organization and, yeah, sorry. Sorry. So in Annex 14, we have the budget, the work program and budget. And what we have here, we have the convening, the organization of convening of statutory meetings, the work we have to do with the AMCP, the African Monetary Cooperation Program, the activities we have with the AUC and the AACB, and the relationships we should be following with the African organizations and also international organizations, and then the CAPS, the Community of African Banking Supervisors. If you want to go into a little bit of detail, we were saying that we have a meeting that we organize as usual in February or March in Senegal. We have one continental seminar that we are planning. Maybe if you have two continental seminars, we will have to look again at its budget, because we will need to maybe increase and include another continental seminar. We have also the symposium that is the one we organize during the annual meetings, and a meeting of the Bureau and a session of the Assembly of Governors meeting during the annual session. Okay, the meeting of the Bureau is always preceded by meetings of the technical committee. The Secretariat also attends meetings of the Specialized Technical Committee of African Union Commission on Finance, Monetary Affairs, Economic Planning and Integration. So we will continue in 2020. What we wanted to do is to monitor the implementation of the AMCP, to prepare reports that we used to present here, and make arrangements to implement the decision taken by the Assembly of Governors. And for the CAPS also, we should be participating in the annual meetings of the CAPS and work also to oversee what the working groups are doing, and to follow up also their activities, and work on their report to be able to report. Okay, so what we were saying also is that we will need to organize a CAPS conference, which should be hosted by the National Bank of Rwanda, probably in June, because as was indicated, now we would like to have each year a CAPS meeting. So we should have that meeting hosted by the chair of the CAPS, which is the chair of the AACB. And we also have work we do with the platform of the CAPS, where we have information exchange with different central banks. So what we have also is to follow up the working groups as it was set, cross-border banking and crisis management. So those were different activities that we have. And with the working group on cross-border banking supervision, the AACB Secretariat and the South African Reserve Bank has put together a platform to exchange information, banking sector information. So the platform is now operational, and we have at the time, at one time, sent letters to all the AACB governors to nominate their officers that will have access to the platform. So that platform is now operational, and we should be loading information on the platform. In terms of cooperation with the international institutions, we have mentioned the cooperation we have with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and the meetings we have lately, the OSSP AACB meeting. We have also cooperation with the European Central Bank, and as we were saying, we, in the cooperation plan, are expecting to have a workshop, a training on their Bayesian estimation analysis and regression toolbox. And the ACB should send experts that will allow to train in that toolbox. So those were the activities that we will be doing in summary. And we just have mentioned the budget that we will need for that.
Yeah, but I have a comment. You're saying that the CABs will meet in June.
Yes.
And we understand that the Bureau will meet in February, right?
Yes.
And so do you think it makes sense that the CABs meet after the Bureau, 3-4 months after the Bureau, especially that the Bureau is expected to require from the CABs much more different things? And do you think that the CABs, the heads of the working groups and the head of CABs should should attend the Bureau meetings in February?
Okay.
Do we need everybody aligned?
Okay, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. What we have come up with during the last CAPS meeting is that each mid-December, the working groups should submit their report to the AACB Secretariat for the information of the Bureau in February. And in mid-May, each working group should also submit a report first to the CAPS chairman, who will put together all the reports and forward it to the AACB Secretariat. And that report will be used to inform the Assembly of Governors meeting. Now I know that it is requested that the CAPS chairperson comes at the AACB annual meetings to present the report. And if also it is needed that for the Bureau meeting, the CAPS chairperson or the working groups chairs come to the Bureau to present, you could request it from the working group chairs and the CAPS chair. So in the beginning, what we were thinking is that if they send their report in mid-December to the CAPS chair, the reports of the working groups will be consolidated and sent to the AACB Secretariat and be presented to the Bureau meeting. But instead of having maybe the AACB Secretariat or the chair of the technical committee make the presentation, we could ask the chair of CAPS to come to the Bureau meeting to make a presentation, and also come to the Assembly of Governors meeting to make a presentation based on the reports he or she will be receiving from the working groups. Thank you on this.
Thank you.
So maybe if I can just on one item. Yeah, I was just saying in terms of the budget, now that we have 2 continental seminars, because when I was reporting on the activities we will be organizing, I was saying 1 continental seminar. And it was based on that 1 continental seminar that we did come up with the budget. If we should have 2 continental seminars, so maybe, Honorable Chairperson, I will ask for your leniency to allow us to include that 2nd continental seminar, submit it to maybe the chair to have the possibility of maybe amending the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any comment? can see. Who's it?
No, I was saying we can proceed with the next
We can proceed, yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson.
The report of the
next
external
agenda
auditors.
item, yes, is the report of the external auditor on the ECB accounts for the year ended on December 2018.
Is it a clean report?
Sorry?
Clean report? Clean report by the auditors?
Yes.
No qualifications? Yeah? Thank you. Next. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. The next agenda item is contribution to ACB 2019 budget, just an information about the budget of last year, which was received by the AECB. At its meeting held in Sharm el-Sheikh on 9 August 2018, the Assembly of Governors adopted the work program and budget of the ACB for the year 2019. The contribution due by each central bank for 2019 amounted to $5,475. Following the meeting of the Assembly of Governors, the ACB Secretariat transmitted the approved budget signed by the chairperson of the association to member central banks and invited them to pay their contribution. It also sent reminders to central banks that did not pay their contributions. The Secretariat received from the relevant department of the BCAO the notification of the payment of the contribution by 37 member central banks out of 40 as at 24th July 2019. The contributions received amounted to $200,000 and $550 out of $219,000 expected, representing a contribution rate of 92.5%, and this is for the Assembly to take note of.
Okay. The suspension of the Central Bank of Sudan.
Yes.
We have presented this earlier. Okay.
Yes.
So that's for to be noted. And then we have the AECB chairperson and vice chairperson for the fiscal year 2019-20, and the composition of the bureau.
Yes. As for the composition of the new bureau for 2019-2020, in accordance with the ACB rules, the governors of the National Bank or the governor of the National Bank of Rwanda will be the next ACB chairperson for the period August 2019, August 2020. The Central Africa sub-region will designate the governor who will be the AECB vice chairperson for the same period. Information received from the chairs of some of the sub-regions indicates the following in relation to the chairs and alternate chairs of the sub-regions. For Central Africa, BIAC is supposed to be the chair, and Bank Central du Congo will be the alternate chair. East Africa, Bank of Tanzania as the chair, and Bank of Uganda as the alternate chair. Southern Africa sub-region, Central Bank of Madagascar as the chair, and Bank of Zambia as the alternate chair. North Africa, Central Bank of Tunisia as the chair, and Central Bank of Egypt as alternate chair. For West Africa, the Central Bank of Liberia will be the chair, and the name of the alternate chair will be communicated to the ACB Secretariat after the meeting of the sub-region planned for August 2019.
Okay. Congratulations, Governor. I would like to congratulate my friend and brother, Governor of Rwanda, and I would like to thank you all for the excellent experience that I've learned and what I've learned from you all over the last year. And it has been very vibrant and very challenging, and I really think this is an incredible experience. And we hope that our efforts has been received fairly well. Now the venue date for the 43rd ordinary meeting with the Assembly of Governors, according to the rules, the Vice Chairman from Central Africa will host the next AACB annual meetings in 2020. The venue and date of the meetings will be communicated by the Vice Chairperson to the AACB, currently the Chairperson. Unless there are any other issues, Governor? Yeah, forgot to give the word to Governor of Southern Sudan, who is with us for the first time today, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to leave this place without saying a word of thanks to the AACB. I am really very honored and delighted to attend for the first time representing the Bank of South Sudan, this important gathering. And I would like to register my appreciation for the overwhelming support that the Bank of South Sudan got since the time we applied for the membership of the AACB. I want particularly to thank Governor Tariq for the effort he has made together with the Secretariat. Of course, as a new member, I've decided to listen very carefully today and to share the progress that the AACB has made over the past years, the effort that have been made towards the agenda of monetary integration in our continent. I noticed that we have a lot to catch up, we have a lot to learn, and as a new central bank, I also want to recognize the support that we have been getting from our regional central banks in the East African region in particular. And I'm sure that we would also get the support from our colleagues, members of the AACB. So I don't want to say much, but wanted once again to thank you for accepting our membership and for the Bank of South Sudan becoming the newest member of the AACB. Thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Governor Lesotho.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On our other business, excuse me, I want to mention the name of the alternative chair to Liberia. The alternative chair will be Guinea, and this will be communicated to the governor of Guinea.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We have a few presentations, very short ones, where we are going to invite guests from outside the room. Yeah. Would you like to give us an idea about it?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. So we have some presentations from some partners. We have the African Trade Insurance Agency for capital relief. He will make a presentation. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York also, the European Central Bank, and the African Peer Review Mechanisms. It should be just short presentations of around 10 minutes. So we would like to invite the ATI, the African Trade Insurance Agency for capital relief, to take the floor. Thank you. Can someone help with the mic? everyone hearing. That's fine.
And those include guarantees by corporates, by sovereigns, central banks, multilateral development banks, and other multilateral DFIs which are operational within our continent. And if you look at the basic paragraph 53 of the Basel framework, it talks about how the risk weightings are actually aligned towards the rating of the entity that is actually granting the guarantee. And you can see with entities that actually have a AAA rating, the risk weighting is 0, and that goes up all the way to 100% for those who are unrated. So what we want to do as ATI, next slide please. What we want to do as ATI is just to come in and just ask that the Africa Central Banks actually consider giving us a risk weighting of 20%, which will allow us to, the banks that actually use our products to benefit out of a 20% capital, to benefit out of a 20% risk weighting, and then that will give them some capital that will allow them to increase their access to credit and also to lower the cost of credit. And when we talk about this framework, which is a shift in our framework, we actually want to ask that you also consider other institutions, other multilateral institutions and DFIs, especially like Aramco and the AGF, who are also working within our space and offering products that are very similar to ours, because we feel that as a collective group, we can all benefit out of that treatment. And we also want to point out the fact that so far we've actually been given some relief. The government of DRC, the Central Bank of DRC has been quite grateful to us, gracious to us. Malawi, Zambia, and even recently the BCAO has actually extended that relief to actually us. So any banks in their countries who are using our products are actually able to benefit out of are actually able to benefit and have some capital relief through lower risk weightings. So I'm sure you're wondering, okay, here we are and you know what we're asking for, but maybe you want to take some time and just give you a big background on who ATI is. ATI was actually formed back in 2001. We are an African multilateral, initially under COMESA and under the World Bank guidance. It was felt that it was not prudent for each African country to actually come together because of their, to pursue having an ECA individually because of their sizes, but maybe coming together and pooling resources would allow them to actually have one entity that they will all be shareholders of, that would actually have a bigger impact in terms of capital and in terms of also attracting investments into the member states. So initially we were owned by African governments, 100%, but since then we have had the shareholders who actually come in. We actually do have institutional shareholders and other multilaterals, including the African Development Bank, and also other governments like the Indian government, the Italian government, and the UK government through UK Export Finance. And I think I also want to give Grandco a little bit of an opportunity to speak about some of their background and that kind of thing.
So I'd like to echo Philip's thanks for the invitation from the National Bank of Rwanda to join ATI's presentation today. So Grandco, while not owned by African governments but backed by a number of European governments, shares the same, many of the same objectives and similar product offering to ATI, and has a strong focus on sub-Saharan Africa as a core part of its mandate. So the objective is to support the provision of credit to the private sector from local sources of capital. Similarly, we're also recognized, our guarantees are recognized for risk-weighted asset relief purposes in a number of jurisdictions, which includes the Western Central African CFA franc zones, as well as a couple of countries outside of sub-Saharan Africa. So we're AA- rated, which is translated in Nigeria into a AAA rating locally. I'll let you carry on.
All right, okay, good. So as you consider our proposal, I just want to spend some time and just talk about what ATI has on the table. As far as like some assurances as to how our operations run. I want to talk about our core strengths, and the first one is our risk management. Just to give you assurance that we do have policies in place that actually govern our exposures, which were initially set off when we started off as an entity, and those were mostly modeled under MIGA, which is part of the World Bank. But since then, the World Bank has actually taken a step back and given the oversight role to a board risk committee that indeed now actually does review our operations manual and underwriting manuals, just to make sure that whatever risk we are taking, we are approaching that on a prudent basis. And again, I also want to let you know that our board is actually composed of our shareholders, which means your governments, which African governments who are our shareholders, their ministries of finance or ministry of industry are the ones who actually sit on our board. On that basis too, I also want to mention ATI's credit rating. We actually are reviewed annually by S&P and Moody's. Our S&P rating is actually A stable, and our Moody's rating is actually A3, also stable. And generally, we share our rating reports from the agencies, and we also allow banks to actually come in and take some due diligence on us, and we're very transparent. As a matter of fact, most of the banks we actually work on actually do have lines on us. They've reviewed us and have actually set certain lines. And again, this information that is available to the banks is also available to you as regulators, so we're actually willing to share that information with you so that you can actually get a better understanding of how we actually function. Continuing our core strengths, I just want to talk about our timing conditions for claims payment. So what we issue is an insurance policy which is very close to a guarantee. And it's actually based on Basel III wording, which means that we removed all the subjectivities that the bank is not in control of. Once they follow the terms and conditions of our policies, then the process of us honoring a claim is actually pretty straightforward. As a matter of fact, within 180 days, 6 months, we're actually able to assess the claim and actually honor it. Again, when we start to work with banks, as we give them guarantees and insurance policies to safeguard against some of their lending, we also want to make sure that we're not promoting bad behavior on terms of our policy holders. So we have some kind of risk sharing mitigation, and that normally comes in from anywhere from 50% to about 15%. Because we don't insure the banks actually 100%, so we allow them to actually retain some risk on their book so that indeed they are also our risk sharers with us, so that they are also incented to actually work diligently and to make sure that they are monitoring their borrowers and they are doing the things that they are supposed to do as a bank. Right. Now, what I want to do is just spend a little bit of time and just talk about how international banks have actually benefited from our policies. And I want to mention just a few transactions we've actually supported in the last 18 to 24 months. We've done a sovereign loan in West Africa, which is about 350 million. That was actually championed by European Bank. We've done a trade line for an East African bank, which was also supported by an African MDB. We have supported 202 million facility to a state utility in West Africa. European Bank was at the forefront of that. An African bank has actually organized a swap for one of our central banks in our member countries. We have an Asian bank who was actually given out a facility for a government airport project in Southern Africa. And we're also working with a European bank that's actually done a central bank loan facility in Northern Africa. And Garanco also has some similar products that they've actually supported, so I'll let them speak a little bit about that.
So without listing all specific transactions, I guess the similar point to make is that we've had international banks join a number of transactions and express keenness to work with us because they can benefit from relief on their risk-weighted asset calculations. But since our real aim is to support internal sources of long-term local currency financing, we really want to work with local banks and local capital markets investors. And so that leads us to our representation here.
All right, so we promise not to take up too much of your time. So in conclusion, what we want to do is just wrap up and give you some recommendations. So the first thing we want to point out is that our insurance products are actually taken up by banks in your jurisdictions, and they're not relying on us wholly. They are still using other methods of collateral that they usually tend to use for their loan products. So we tend to be more or less a supplement, something that they take on over an additional, so they can actually maybe sleep better at night. The second thing we want to point out is the fact that we are owned by African governments. So this is your institution, and you're the shareholders of this institution. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that the majority of those benefits are actually felt by banks who are actually working within the African states. And I think by us coming in and asking for that capital relief, it allows the banks to actually benefit the most out of that. And we also recognize the fact that some of these benefits, again, will have more or less multiply effects within our jurisdiction. So we just want to point out that by our banks, making our banks a little bit more competitive in our member countries, we're able to improve access to credit and also lower the cost of credit. So as we conclude, we just want to...
one point that would be grateful to make is that we hope that we would like to invite you to consider this, particularly in this forum. We believe that these guarantees support the central bank objective of financial stability that comes with increasing sources of internal financing, and with that the opportunity to promote the use of local currency and long-term debt, which we aim to use to mitigate foreign exchange risk in the economy.
Yes, as well as also improve tenors, because in many instances we find that banks in our jurisdiction, as they want to participate in longer tenors for infrastructure products, they are a little bit of at a disadvantage. So some of these initiatives actually will help them to participate in some of those transactions. So as we conclude, what we want to do is maybe just ask you to allow us to have an engagement with your technical committee where we can actually sit down with them and maybe we can provide a little bit more detail information and then find a way of how this can indeed be possible within our continent. Thank you very much, and I think we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Your challenge is capital. How can you grow the limited capital you have?
Our challenge is capital indeed, yes. Right now we have 14 African governments that are our shareholders. Soon will be 16 because we have Nigeria and Ghana coming in. So we actually are working quite diligently to make sure that all countries in Africa, the 52 countries in Africa, all become shareholders because they are all eligible. And any country that is a member of the AU is actually eligible to become our shareholder. So I think with more members coming in,
how much leverage? How much can you leverage capital in terms of your guarantees? What are the multiples?
All right. So we are able to leverage our capital up to 8 times. But again, when you add
8 times?
8 times. That's right. That's our own retention.
And what's your capital?
Our capital is about $262 million right now.
262?
262.
And how much is it leveraged now?
So right now, our total outstanding exposure is about $5 billion. And the reason why it's such a high number is because we leverage 8 times, but because we also use reinsurance,
So
we're
you
actually
can't
able
operate
to
now.
have a higher multiplier on that.
You cannot do more now, unless you get more capital.
Yes, so we actually need more capital, so we actually need a lot more of African governments to actually join us and actually contribute capital to make us a stronger entity. That also allows us to diversify our portfolio so that we have a better mix of transactions within the whole continent.
The clarification, I would like just to, as a recommendation, to review the risk weight of 20%, whether it will be in place by implementing Basel IV, which will be in place by 2022. This is very, very important to review such cases, because actually based on the documents, I believe we will not be in a position to offer the 20% as a risk weight. Therefore, please go through the document to ensure whether we will be in a position to offer such less risk weight or not. Thank you.
All right.
We'll close there because for the sake of time. Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I think we are all aware of what you're proposing and offering. And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we would like to invite the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to take the floor for the presentation.
This is the last one?
No, we have 2 more. Yeah, ECB and then APRM. APRM, they should be attacks here. Okay. Yeah. Who's APRM? African Peer Review.
Hello? So thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and Honorable Governors of the Association of African Central Banks. Thank you all for inviting us again to attend these annual meetings. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the National Bank of Rwanda for the impeccable arrangements and the hospitality that they has been extended to me and my colleagues. Your Excellencies, I'm here today to share with you takeaways from a major milestone in our shared capacity building efforts with the recent completion of the inaugural Forum on Central Bank Foreign Currency Operations held in Pretoria in June. This forum was a great example of the collaboration that will be necessary in the years ahead to raise standards internally within all of our organizations and also externally across the community. Over 3 days of training sessions and bilateral meetings, 120 AACB delegates from 35 AACB central banks engaged with their official sector service providers, or OSSPs, in highly interactive and intensive discussions on a full range of account operations-focused topics. These official sector service providers, or OSSPs, comprise 12 major reserve currency central banks, the Federal Reserve, the ECB, People's Bank of China, Bank of Japan, and others, plus the Bank of International Settlements, that provided correspondent banking and custody account services to the global official community. The event was a uniquely valuable opportunity for OSSPs to hear directly from their AACP partners their perspectives on topics such as the challenges and opportunities around strengthening the security of SWIFT endpoints, efforts to strengthen AML and sanctions compliance screening, the de-risking of correspondent banking relationships, and opportunities for improving incident response coordination. This was also an opportunity for African Central Bank account holders to meet face-to-face with their OSSPs in some cases for the first time, and receive collective messaging on matters related to account operations issues. Feedback from both AACB delegates and OSSP participants has been enormously positive. Going forward, participants indicate a strong desire for the forum to become a regular event on the AACB calendar. The New York Fed's commitment to maintain this as a regular event at a frequency of every 3 to 4 years was previously noted in the